I will talk to you of art, for there is nothing else to talk about, for there is nothing else.
You are now here in the nowhere. Attach electrodes to your organic sonic input. Tune in your cybernetic receiver, and make room in your memory's access chip. You are going to need it for the paradigm shift that is the PoJo Show.
Hello and welcome to the PoJo Show. I'm Jedediah Smith, and I'm with my co-host and co-producer,
Batty Royale.
PoJo is short for Poetry Jockey, and what we do is sort of like a disc jockey on a top 40 radio show who spins a bunch of 3-minute songs in a row. But instead of songs, we play sets of short poem recordings, some with music, some with sound, some with just naked words. For over 30 years, I've been collecting poetry and spoken word records, CDs, and tapes, as well as making live recordings of readings, and we use those to make these shows.
Welcome to Shark Week. Having completed our 5-week series of programs inspired by the coronavirus, we are taking you on an underwater voyage this week. We will have poems of whimsy, beauty, and destruction, as is befitting these amazing animals. Since these are sharks, I want to give a caution that a lot of these works contain acts of violence by and against sea creatures. Also, we'll focus not just on sharks, but on whales and the ocean in general. This show is dedicated to my father, who loved the ocean immensely.
We'll be playing poems by Michael McClure, Mary Oliver, Carl Sandburg, D.H. Lawrence, and Herman Melville. We'll also be including more fiction and nonfiction this time by writers like Rachel Carson, Eugenie Clark, Ernest Hemingway, Herman Melville again, Jules Verne, and Jacques Cousteau.
Will we also be including a poem by Batty Royale?
We'll also be including a poem by Batty Royale.
That's me!
That's right.
We're going to start with a song by Justin Sullivan. We saw him with his band New Model Army in San Francisco in 2004. Shortly after that, I was gifted with his solo album about the ocean, entitled Navigating by the Stars. I was so moved by it that I always remembered it, and I thought it was the perfect way to begin this week.
There are warnings of gales in Humber, Thames, Dover, Wight, Portland, Plymouth, Biscay, Fitzroy, Seoul, Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea, Shannon, Hebrides, Bailey, Faroes, Southeast Iceland. The general synopsis of 1300. Low, 200 miles north of Fair Isle, 967 expected, 90 miles north of Fair Isle, 972 by 1300 tomorrow. Low, Malin, 975 expected, Sweden, 975 by same time.
I dream of the ocean and the beautiful sky rolling out to sea. I dream of the ocean and the rip of the tide west of Finisterre. The weight of the water pouring down, holding on to me. I dream of the ocean rising, rising. I dream of the ocean rising, rising. I dream of the ocean through the night, the ghosts sailing still. The James Caird steering east by northeast through the wild Atlantic swell. The men lie soaked and cold beneath the sail on a bed of ballast stone. They hear the bus cry out, I can can see them now, the snow-capped peaks of land, but it was the ocean rising, rising, a 40-foot wall of water crashing down. They held their breath, prayed to God in the hour of death to save them from the ocean rising, rising. I dream of the ocean rising, rising. And so the years they flow, and journeys end. The old crew sailed south again, and they buried the bus by the melting snow in the summer winds on the island. And now the icy cracks falls away, driven in the storms. And I'll be there where the sky touches the sea, at the edge of the ocean, where the beautiful world fades into the grey. I dream of the ocean rising, rising. I dream of the ocean rising, rising. I dream of the ocean rising, 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 rising.
They say the sea is cold, but the sea contains the hottest blood of all, and the wildest, the most urgent. All the whales in the wider deeps hot are they, as they urge on and dive beneath the icebergs. The right whales, the sperm whales, the hammerheads, the killers, there they blow hot, wild, white breath out of the sea. And they rock through the sensual, ageless ages on the depth of the seven seas, and through the salt they reel with drunk delight, and in the tropics tremble they with love, and roll with massive, strong desire like gods. Then the great bull lies up against his bride, in the blue deep of the sea, as mountain pressing on mountain in the zest of life. And out of the inward roaring of the inner red ocean of whale blood, the long tip reaches strong, intense, like the maelstrom tip, and comes to rest in the clasp and the soft, wild clutch of a she-whale's fathomless body. And over the bridge of the whale's strong phallus, linking the wonder of whales, the burning archangels under the sea keep passing back and forth, from him to her, from her to him, great cherubim that wait on whales in mid-ocean, suspended in the waves of the sea, great heaven of whales in the waters, old hierarchies. And enormous mother whales lie dreaming, suckling their whale-tender young, and dreaming with strange whale eyes wide open in the waters of the beginning and the end. And bull whales gather their women and whale calves in a ring when danger threatens on the surface of the ceaseless flood, and range themselves like great fierce seraphim facing the threat, encircling their huddled monsters of love. And all this happiness in the sea, in the salt, where God is also love, but without words. And Aphrodite is the wife of whales, most happy, happy she. And Venus among the fishes skips and is a she-dolphin. She is the gay, delighted porpoise, sporting with love and the sea. She is the female tunny fish, round and happy among the whales, and dense with happy blood, dark rainbow bliss in the sea.
Humpbacks by Mary Oliver. There is all around us this country of original fire. You know what I mean. The sky, after all, stops at nothing, so something has to be holding our bodies in its rich and timeless stables, or else we would fly away. Off Stellwagen, off the Cape, the humpbacks rise, carrying their tonnage of barnacles and joy. They leap through the water, they nuzzle back under it like children at play. They sing, too, and not for any reason you can't imagine. 3 of them rise to the surface near the bow of the boat. They dive deeply, their huge, scarred flukes tipped to the air. We wait, not knowing just where it will happen. Suddenly, they smash through the surface. Someone begins shouting for joy, and you realize it is yourself as they surge upward, and you see for the first time how huge they are as they breach and dive and breach again through the shining blue flowers of the split water, and you see them for some unbelievable part of a moment against the sky, like nothing you've ever imagined, like the myth of the 5th morning, galloping out of darkness, pouring heavenward, spinning. Then they crash back under those black silks, and we all fall back into that wet fire. You know what I mean. I know a captain who has seen them playing with seaweed, tossing the slippery lengths of it into the air. I know a whale that will come to the boat whenever she can and nudge it gently along the bow with her long flipper. I know several lives worth living. Listen, whatever it is you try to do with your life, nothing will ever dazzle you like the dreams of your body, its spirit longing to fly while the deadweight bones toss their dark mane and hurry back into the fields of glittering fire, where everything, even the great whale, throbs with song.
Byline, Time Magazine, April 1954. Killer whales. Savage sea cannibals up to 30 feet long with teeth like bayonets. One was caught with 14 seals and 13 porpoises in its belly. They often tear at boats and nets and have destroyed thousands of dollars worth of fishing tackle. The Icelandic government appealed to the U.S., which has thousands of men stationed at a lonely NATO air base on the subarctic island. 79 board GIs responded with enthusiasm. Armed with rifles and machine guns, one posse of Americans climbed into 4 small boats and in one morning wiped out a pack of 100 killers. First, the killers were rounded up into a tight formation with concentrated machine gun fire, then moved out again one by one for the final blast which would kill them. As one was wounded, the others would set upon it and tear it to pieces with their jagged teeth.
For the death of 100 whales. Hung mid-sea, like a boat mid-air, the liners boiled their pastures, the liners of flesh, the Arctic steamers, brains the size of a teacup, mouths the size of a door, the sleek wolves, mowers and reapers of sea kine, the giant tadpoles, meat their algae, leapt like sheep or children shot from the sea's boar, turned and twisted. Goya flung blood and sperm. Insects gnashed at their tails and brothers. Cursed Christ of mammals. Snapped at the sun. Ran for the sea's floor. Goya. Goya. Oh, D.H. Lawrence. No angels dance those bridges. Oh, gun. Oh, bow. There are no churches in the waves. No holiness. No passages or crossings from the beast's wet shore.
I dream of the ocean.
That was Michael McClure reading one of his earliest poems, For the Death of 100 Whales. He read that poem at the Six Gallery reading, which, at least for the public, was sort of the launching point of what's now known as the Beat Generation. It's remembered primarily for Allen Ginsberg reading Howl in public for the first time, but it was also one of the first readings for Gary Snyder, reading his poems that focus on the environment, as well as Michael McClure, who is also very environmental in his consciousness. You can hear him referring to D.H. Lawrence there. And at the beginning was the Time magazine article that shocked him so much that it inspired this poem.
Before that, we had Humpbacks by Mary Oliver, which I read, with musical accompaniment by Paul Winter and Paul Howey.
And we had before that the D.H. Lawrence poem that inspired Michael McClure in part, called Whales Weep Not, and that was read by Dylan Thomas.
Beginning the set, Ocean Rising by Justin Sullivan. We'll begin our next set with Carl Sandburg's poem, In a Breath.
In a Breath by Carl Sandburg. High noon. White sun flashes on the Michigan Avenue asphalt. Drum of hoofs and whir of motors. Women traipsing along in flimsy clothes, catching play of sunfire to their skin and eyes. Inside the playhouse are movies from under the sea. From the heat of pavements and the dust of sidewalks, passers-by go in a breath to be witnesses of large, cool sponges, large, cool fishes, large, cool valleys and ridges of coral spread silent in the soak of the ocean floor thousands of years. A naked swimmer dives. A knife in his right hand shoots a streak at the throat of a shark. The tail of the shark lashes. One swing would kill the swimmer. Soon the knife goes into the soft underneck of the veering fish, its mouthful of teeth, each tooth a dagger itself, set row on row, glistens when the shuddering, yawning cadaver is hauled up by the brothers of the swimmer. Outside in the street is the murmur and singing of life in the sun. Horses, motors, women traipsing along in flimsy clothes, play of sunfire in their blood.
A Shark Ate a Barge by Batty Royale. A shark ate a barge after dawn. He swallowed the crew and cargo and swam on. How far could he roam in the foam, seeking food, wreaking havoc and blood? A cowboy on a seahorse set a course to stop the panic that the shark was by now too delighted to deploy. The massive shark threw back his big head and cackled each time the seahorse did pass him. And when the cowboy lassoed him with seaweed and asked, "What did you need to eat all them people for?" the shark dove with the cowboy, the seahorse, and of course that's the end. But the bend in the plot is in fact that when the barge was intact, it held a lot of sharkskin suits.
The thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes. Black eyes like a doll's eyes. When he comes at ya, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites ya. And then the blood and the red and the water.
You ever wonder what happened to Rick and Morty?
Sometimes, but I'm ashamed to admit now that they're gone, I'm finally happy.
Me! A fucking shark ate me!
You know, once, off the hump of Brazil, I saw the ocean so darkened with blood it was black, and the sun fainting away over the lip of the sky. We'd put in at Fortaleza, but a few of us had lines out for a bit of idle fishing. It was me had the first strike. A shark it was. Then there was another, and another shark again. It's all about the sea was made of sharks, and more sharks still, and no water at all. My shark had torn himself from the hook, and the scent, or maybe the stain, it wasn't him bleeding his life away, drove the rest of them mad. Then the beasts took to eating each other. In their frenzy, they ate at themselves. You could feel the lust of murder like a wind stinging your eyes, and you could smell the death reeking up out of the sea. I never saw anything worse until this little picnic tonight. And you know, there wasn't one of them sharks in the whole crazy pack that survived. I believe in you now.
The Maldive Shark. About the shark, phlegmatical one, pale sought of the Maldive Sea, the sleek little pilot fish, azure and slim, how alert in attendance be. From his saw pit of mouth, from his charnel of maw, they have nothing of harm to dread, but liquidly glide on his ghastly flank, or before his Gorgonian head, or lurk in the port of serrated teeth, in white triple tiers of glittering gates, and there find a haven when peril's abroad, an asylum in jaws of the fates. They are friends, and friendly they guide him to prey, yet never partake of the treat, eyes and brains to the dotard, lethargic and dull, pale ravener of horrible meat.
A treacherous monster is the shark. He never makes the least remark.
Land shark!
And when he sees you on the sand, he doesn't seem to want to land. He watches you take off your clothes, and not the least excitement shows. His eyes do not grow bright or roll. He has astounding self-control. He waits till you are quite undressed, and seems to take no interest. And when towards the sea you leap, he looks as if you were asleep. But when you once get in his range, his whole demeanor seems to change. He throws his body right about, and his true character comes out.
Delicious!
It's no use crying or appealing. He seems to lose all decent feeling. After this warning, you will wish to keep clear of this treacherous fish. His back is black, his stomach white. He has a very dangerous bite.
We are here on the beach where a giant shark has just eaten a girl swimmer. Well, Mr. Jaws, how was it? Dynamite! And what did she say when you grabbed her?
Please, mister, please.
I know sharks are stupid, but what did you think when you took that first bite?
How sweet it is.
Mr. Jaws, before you swim out to sea, have you anything else to say?
I can't breathe, be friends. I can't breathe, be friends.
With me now is the local sheriff. Sheriff Brody, the shark will be back for lunch. What do you intend to do?
Do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight.
Just arriving is oceanographer Matt Hooper. Sir, if someone is attacked by a shark, what should they do?
Do the hustle.
We are going aboard the fishing boat of Captain Quint. Captain, will you be able to catch this giant shark?
I will.
Thank you, Captain. Captain, when you catch one of these sharks, what do you feel like?
Like a rhinestone cowboy.
We've just sighted the shark again. He's coming straight for us. Captain Quint is shouting something at him.
Get your baby one of these nights.
Hey, Jaws, the captain says he's going to catch you. What do you think of that? Uh-oh, here he comes again. They've hit him. Mr. Jaws, why doesn't anything seem to hurt you?
Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry.
He's coming right onto the boat. Mr. Jaws, why are you grabbing my hand?
Wouldn't you give your hand to a friend?
No, wait, Mr. Jaws, that's not the way this record is supposed to end. Help! Help!
Here are some selections from Slickety Quick, Poems About Sharks by Skeela Brown. Great White Shark. Okay, we get it. You're big and bad and mean, and you think that everywhere you go, there should be scary music. But really, you're no bully, just a big attention hog. So move over. Let another shark swim to the beat.
But I'm telling you, and I'm telling everybody at this table, that that's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close.
Baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby shark.
Who is it? Who is it?
Plumber.
Plumber? I didn't ask for a plumber. Who is it?
Telegram.
Oh, telegram. Just a moment.
Oh my God! You can't tell me this woman was killed by falling out of a tree. What is it? Land shark. Cleverest species of them all. Oh my God.
Tiger shark. Your slinky stripes slide around. From below you wait. And stalk your prey, you wait. For the turtle that pops up to breathe, crunch, you wait. For the albatross that lands, gnash, you snatch their breath away.
Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark.
Considered the cleverest of all sharks. Unlike the great white, which tends to inhabit the waters of harbors and recreational beach areas, the land shark may strike at any time, any place. It is capable of disguising its voice and generally attacks young single women. Expert at the University of Miami's Oceanographic Institute suggests that the best way to scare off the shark in the event of an attack is to hit or punch the predator in the nose. Now for the weather in the outlook.
Frilled shark. Slowly through the deepest blue, rocking side to side. Frilled sharks swim where light is dim and they can almost hide. Lean and long, teeth needle strong, with foggy empty eyes. Swollen gills, all hooks and frills, a snake-like fossil prize.
The Army Air Force has published a book on what to do if you happen to fall into the water and meet up with a shark. Under Rule 1, the trick is to make a quick swing at the shark. Slap the water around and holler like blazes. Now that's supposed to ruin the shark's self-confidence. If that doesn't work, grab the shark's dorsal fin and hang on until he gets tired. If that doesn't work, haul off and give him a swift kick in the nose. A shark can't take it on the snoot. There's nothing to it.
Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark.
Yes?
Mrs. Arlsberg?
Who?
Mrs. Barlingham?
Who is it?
Flowers.
Flowers for whom?
Plumber, ma'am.
I don't need a plumber. You're that clever shark, aren't you?
Candygram.
Candygram my foot. You get out of here before I call the police. You're the shark and you know it.
Wait, I'm only a dolphin, ma'am.
A dolphin? Well, okay.
Goblin shark. When you see a goblin glow, you'll think, nice pink. When it swims from side to pose, long nose. When it flips and dives and points to south, no mouth. But when the jaws from down below unhinge, you'll cringe.
Grandma shark doo 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 doo. Grandma shark doo 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 doo. Grandma shark doo 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 doo. Grandma shark.
Who is it?
Land shark.
Oh, Walter. Land shark. Honest to God.
Hello, Walter. I have some good news and I have some bad news.
First, the good news. Betty and I are having a party tonight, and come on over. You'll have a great time. Now the bad news. You'll be coming stag.
Hammerhead Shark.
He enters the reef, the ballroom.
She waits at the reef, the ballroom,
and swims.
With her friends.
Searching for a partner.
Searching for a partner.
He knows the right moves to show that he wants to dance.
She knows the right moves to show that she wants to dance.
Tilt to the side.
Swim up and down.
White belly flash.
Blinking her softness.
Swimming at an angle.
The first one comes near.
The first one comes near.
She nibbles his skin.
And tickles his chin.
But something
feels off. He shakes his head.
She swims away.
But then he sees
another.
He tilts.
She nods.
Now it's just the two of them.
Swimming
away into the night.
Love at first
bite. Interwove a few things, including the children's song Baby Shark by Pink Fong. If you're a parent, you already know and hate that song. If you're not a parent, avoid it at all costs.
Rude.
And so we interwove that with some pieces from long ago original Saturday Night Live sketch, Land Shark. And that was some less than helpful, less than accurate advice on how to deal with sharks if you find yourself in the ocean with them. That's from the Max Fleischer news sketches, that one in 1944. Max Fleischer, well, if you like old cartoons, you'll recognize that name. What he would do, or the studio would do, is draw a series of images that they would then give newsreel type reports about.
But to be clear, that was not tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, it was all done in a humorous style, but this was supposed to be accurate advice, and it was cutting-edge advice at the time, like splash in the water, which we now know imitates a wounded animal, which will make the sharks only more happy to attack. Before the Fleischer news sketches, a series of poems that were read by Batty and were written by a woman named Skeela Brown, all about sharks. Book is called Slickety Quick.
And it has wonderful illustrations, and I recommend you check it out.
You can see some of these illustrations online. They're really wonderful, and the layout of the poems is also like concrete poetry, so it sometimes they're shaped like shark fins or things like that. And of course we ended that set with a very romantical poem read by both Batty and myself about the true love of hammerhead sharks. And what else makes you think of Valentine's, candygrams, flowers, all that crap, but hammerhead sharks?
It was very sweet.
Before that, I read. Did I read this?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, I can't remember.
I don't know what this is.
Lord Alfred Douglas's poem, The Shark.
Read by somebody.
Read by somebody or other.
We also had the Herman Melville poem, Maldive Shark, read by Hans Ostrom.
And that touching story about sharks eating each other is a section from the film noir Lady from Shanghai. That's Orson Welles doing the Irish accent there.
Rough stuff.
We led into that with the great Aquabats song, Shark Fighter.
Just before that, we had Summer from Rick and Morty with her rendition of the Stirring Jaws story.
A dramatic retelling of Quint's monologue from Jaws. Originally acted by Robert Shaw, here reenacted.
It's a reimaginactment.
Exactly. Before that, we had a poem by Batty Royale, read by Batty Royale, entitled, what's it entitled, Batty Royale?
Entitled, A Shark Ate a Barge.
Perfect. And we began that set with Carl Sandburg's poem In a Breath, read by me. We'll start the next set with more of my voice. I can't shut up. Some selections from Rachel Carson's beautiful book, The Sea Around Us. Rachel Carson, of course, best known for Silent Spring, which talked all about the dangers of DDT, but she was first a marine biologist or a writer about marine biology. I come from the generation where we actually grew up on her books. Beautiful line-drawing illustrations that you'd get in them. What you're going to hear is incredibly gorgeous prose, the kind of writing you used to get from people in all sorts of fields. The Grey Beginnings. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Genesis. Beginnings are apt to be shadowy, and so it is with the beginnings of that great mother of life, the sea. Many people have debated how and when the earth got its ocean, and it is not surprising that their explanations do not always agree. For the plain and inescapable truth is that no one was there to see, and in the absence of eyewitness accounts, there is bound to be a certain amount of disagreement. So if I tell here the story of how the young planet Earth acquired an ocean, it must be a story pieced together from many sources and containing whole chapters, the details of which we can only imagine. The story is founded on the testimony of the Earth's most ancient rocks, which were young when the Earth was young, on the other evidence written on the face of the Earth's satellite, the Moon, and on hints contained in the history of the Sun and the whole universe of star-filled space. For although no man was there to witness this cosmic birth, the stars and the moon and the rocks were there, and indeed had much to do with the fact that there is an ocean.
There is an ocean of vast proportion, and she flows within ourselves. To take dips daily, we dive in gaily. He knows who goes within himself. The abode of angels, the mystical promised land, the one and only heaven, the God of man, is but the closing of an eyelid away.
To the ancient Greeks, the ocean was an endless stream that flowed forever around the border of the world, ceaselessly turning upon itself like a wheel, the end of the earth, the beginning of heaven. The ocean was boundless. It was infinite. If a person were to venture far out upon it, were such a course thinkable, he would pass through gathering darkness and obscuring fog, and would come at last to a dreadful and chaotic blending of sea and sky, a place where whirlpools and yawning abysses waited to draw the traveler down into the dark world from which there was no return. These ideas are found in varying form in much of the literature of the 10 centuries before the Christian era, and in later years they keep recurring even through the greater part of the Middle Ages. To the Greeks, the familiar Mediterranean was the sea. Outside, bathing the periphery of the land world, was Oceanus. Perhaps somewhere in its uttermost expanse was the home of the gods and of departed spirits, the Elysian fields. So we meet the ideas of unattainable continents or of beautiful islands in the distant ocean, confusedly mingled with references to a bottomless gulf at the edge of the world. But always around the disk of the habitable world was the vast ocean, encircling all. Here and there, in a few out-of-the-way places, the darkness of antiquity still lingers over the surface of the waters, but it is rapidly being dispelled, and most of the length and breadth of the ocean is known. It is only in thinking of its third dimension that we can still apply the concept of the Sea of Darkness. It took centuries to chart the surface of the sea. Our progress in delineating the unseen world beneath it seems by comparison phenomenally rapid. But even with all our modern instruments for probing and sampling the deep ocean, no one now can say that we shall ever resolve the last, the ultimate mysteries of the sea. In its broader meaning, that other concept of the ancient remains, for the sea lies all about us. The commerce of all lands must cross it. The very winds that move over the lands have been cradled on its broad expanse and seek ever to return to it. The continents themselves dissolve and pass into the sea in grain after grain of eroded land. So the rains that rose from it return again in rivers. In its mysterious past, it encompasses all the dim origins of life and receives in the end, after, it may be, many transmutations, the dead husks of that same life. For all at last return to the sea, to Oceanus, the ocean river, like the ever-flowing stream of time, the beginning and the end.
There aren't many places in the world you can slap an air bottle on your back, go down 30 feet or so, and watch the sharks go by. In fact, just about the only place you can do it with some hope of living to tell the story is in the Red Sea off Ras Mohammed, the southernmost tip of the Sinai. And even here, divers are afraid they might not be able to do it much longer. The sharks living off the coral reefs here are among the most accessible in the world to scientists, to photographers, to intrepid divers. Up until now, at least, they've been very friendly. But this whole area, all of the Sinai, is in the midst of a political transition right now, and believe it or not, the sharks are caught up in it. For the last 12 years, the sharks have been swimming in Israeli waters. They're about to become Egyptian. Anwar Sadat is gradually regaining control of the entire desert and its territorial waters. Israel is giving up what it conquered by force and what it learned to love and protect. The Israeli occupation may have been controversial politically, but ecologically it was a masterpiece. The Israelis set up nature reserves. They passed and enforced tough legislation protecting wildlife on the sands and in the sea. As Americans were instrumental in orchestrating the peace between Egypt and Israel, Americans are getting involved now in pressing for continued conservation, particularly of the magnificent coral reefs off Ras Mohammed. Marine biologist Dr. Eugenie Clark professor of zoology at the University of Maryland, is spearheading a campaign aimed at convincing Sadat that what he's getting under these waters is worth taking care of.
The Egyptians don't have a conservation program developed yet. They are very much aware of the problem, and they're starting to develop it, but they're like just infants in this field, and the Israelis have really worked out all the problems. They don't allow spearfishing, they don't allow any abuse of the reefs and marine life, because people come out here and they think each person wants to take back one shell, one piece of coral, one shell. They think, what harm is that? But when you get thousands of people coming to one area and picking off the prettiest shells and corals, you have nothing left in no time. I think it's the most beautiful place in the whole world.
Dr. Clark went to Cairo recently to take her case to the president. Sadat responded by sending a small team of Egyptian officials, scientists, and scholars to Ras Mohammed, the first such trip made overland in almost 25 years. They were subjected to 3 days of well-intentioned Israeli propaganda on how they, the Egyptians, should take care of their land and their waters. There was a hike through granite mountains which plunged right down to the sea. There was a cruise through the Straits of Tiran, where Egyptian guns once threatened Israeli shipping and triggered 2 wars. It was a quiet exercise in normalization, diving diplomacy. The message from Israelis to Egyptians: if you don't control and restrict developers, fishermen, tourists, and divers, the incredible underwater world here can disappear within a few months. And Dr. Clark warned that among the first to leave would be the sharks.
Wherever you have a lot of divers, or especially divers with spearfishing, you don't find sharks anymore. And sharks are still, they're such beautiful creatures. Everybody gets a big kick and a thrill out of seeing sharks.
David and Ann Duboulay go into shark-infested waters the way some people hop on a commuter train or drive to the office. The Dubolays are contract photographers for the National Geographic. They're here with Dr. Clark to do a photographic essay on sharks. The Dubolays have shot more than a dozen underwater stories for the Geographic, but for them there's no place like Ras Mohammed and no subject like a shark.
I've always been totally fascinated with sharks. I think they have a kind of a mythical quality. A shark is a kind of a combination of a machine and an animal. Very few animals that look like jet planes yet have eyes. And the eyes are cold and dark and almost without feeling.
Well, I think that there's a lot of bad press for sharks right now, if you will, and I feel very warmly towards them. As a matter of fact, I feel that they're my friends. We've been diving with them now for 2 weeks straight and seen them in groups of 10 to 12 on every dive, and it seems that each day they get more and more used to our presence, and they come in closer and closer to the lens. And
slowly they'll come toward us, and very slowly, then suddenly there is something out there. Excuse me. Stop for a second. That's not a dolphin. No. That is not a dolphin. Slow up. There's a big fin following us, and it's not a dolphin.
Like any world leader, Anwar Sadat receives a lot of petitions, hears a lot of pleas. This is one he probably hasn't heard before. Save the sharks. Bob Simon, CBS News, in the Red Sea.
See how peaceful it is here. The sea is everything. An immense reservoir of nature where I roam at will.
With seeming indifference, Captain Nemo held the key to the future of the world. As I studied him, I became aware that powerful forces were at work within this strange man.
Think of it. On the surface, there is hunger and fear. Men still exercise unjust laws. They fight, tear one another to pieces. A mere few feet beneath the waves, their reign ceases, their even drowns. Here on the ocean floor is the only independence. Here I am free. Imagine what would happen if they controlled machines such as this submarine boat. Far better, but they think there's a monster, and hunt me with harpoons.
Now he knew there was the fish. In his hands and back were no dream. The hands cure quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true Gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work, and we sail well. With his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question. Nor if the fish were in the skiff with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lashed side by side. And the old man thought, let him bring me in. If it pleases him, I am only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm. They sailed well, and the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear. There were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He'd come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mile deep sea. He'd come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the scent and started swimming on the course the skiff and the fish had taken. Sometimes he lost the scent, but he would pick it up again or have just a trace of it, and he swam fast and hard on the course. He was a very big mako shark, built to swim as fast as the fastest fish in the sea, and everything about him was beautiful, except his jaws. His back was as blue as a swordfish's, and his belly was silver, and his hide was smooth and handsome. He was built as a swordfish, except for his huge jaws, which were tight shut now as he swam fast, just under the surface, with his high dorsal fin knifing through the water without wavering. Inside the closed double lip of his jaws, all of his 8 rows of teeth were slanted inwards. They were not the ordinary pyramid-shaped teeth of most sharks. They were shaped like a man's fingers when they are crisped like claws. They were nearly as long as the fingers of the old man, and they had razor-sharp cutting edges on both sides. This was a fish built to feed on all the fishes in the sea that were so fast and strong and well-armed that they had no other enemy. Now he speeded up as he smelled the fresher scent, and his blue dorsal fin cut the water. When the old man saw him coming, he knew that this was a shark that had no fear at all and would do exactly what he wished. He prepared the harpoon and made the rope fast while he watched the shark come on. The rope was short, as it lacked what he'd cut away to lash the fish. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. He took one look at the great fish as he watched the shark close in. Might as well have been a dream, he thought. I cannot keep him from hitting me, but maybe I can get him. Dentuso, he thought. Bad luck, dear mother. The shark closed fast astern, and when he hit the fish, the old man saw his mouth open and his strange eyes and the clicking chomp of the teeth as he drove forward in the meat just above the tail. The shark's head was out of water and his back was coming out, and the old man could hear the noise of skin and flesh ripping on the big fish when he rammed the harpoon down onto the shark's head at a spot where the line between his eyes intersected with a line that ran straight back from his nose. There were no such lines. There was only the heavy, sharp blue head, and the big eyes, and the clicking, thrusting, all-swallowing jaws. But that was the location of the brain, and the old man hit it. He hit it with his blood-mushed hands, driving a good harpoon with all his strength. He hit it without hope, but with resolution and complete malignancy. The shark swung over, and the old man saw his eye was not alive, and then he swung over once again, wrapping himself in 2 loops of the rope. The old man knew that he was dead, but the shark would not accept it. Then, on his back, with his tail lashing and his jaws clicking, the shark plowed over the water as a speedboat does. The water was white where his tail beat it, and 3/4 of his body was clear above the water when the rope came taut, shivered, and then snapped. The shark lay quietly for a little while on the surface, and the old man watched him. Then he went down, very slowly. He took about 40 pounds, the old man said aloud. He took my harpoon, too, and all the rope, he thought. Now my fish bleeds again, and there will be others. He did not like to look at the fish anymore, since he'd been mutilated. When the fish had been hit, it was as though he himself were hit. But I killed the shark that hit my fish, he thought. And he was the biggest dentuso that I have ever seen. And God knows that I have seen big ones. It was too good to last, he thought. I wish it had been a dream now, and that I'd never hooked the fish and was alone in bed on the newspapers. But man is not made for defeat, he said. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. I'm sorry that I killed the fish, though, he thought. Now the bad time is coming, and I do not even have the harpoon. The dentuso is cruel and able and strong and intelligent, but I was more intelligent than he was. Perhaps not, he thought. Perhaps I was only better armed. Don't think, old man, he said aloud. Sail on this course and take it when it comes.
It was a cloudy, sultry afternoon. The seamen were lazily lounging about the decks or vacantly gazing over into the lead-colored waters. Queequeg and I were mildly employed weaving what is called a sword mat for an additional lashing to our boat. So still and subdued, and yet somehow preluding was all the scene. And such an incantation of reverie lurked in the air that each silent sailor seemed resolved into his own invisible self. Thus we were, weaving and weaving away, when I started, at a sound so strange, long-drawn and musically wild and unearthly. I stood, gazing up at the clouds, whence that voice dropped like a wing. High aloft, in the cross trees, was that mad Tashtego. As he stood, hovering over you, half suspended in the air, so wildly and eagerly peering towards the horizon, you would have thought him some prophet or seer beholding the shadows of fate, and by those wild cries announcing their coming. There she blows. There she blows. She blows.
J'ai vu une gerbe à gauche. Ah, derrière vous à droite, là.
The Calypso crew and I will be undertaking a series of voyages of exploration and discovery in all the seas of the world. We will endeavor to save magnificent creatures threatened with extinction. We will study the behavior of all forms of life that thrive in the sea. We will try to trace the history of the oceans in fossil rocks dating back millions of years. From cages made of plexiglass, we will film life that is sometimes serene, sometimes savage, and always beautiful. We will explore the graveyards of the sea where sunken ships slumber, in search of scientific riches more precious than shipwreck's gold. Each time we dive, each time we enter the sea, we learn something new. We have never been better equipped to observe, to learn, and to put our findings to scientific use. Over the years, our quests will lead us to confront the dangers and reveal the splendors of the sea.
Rejoice. We're finally out at sea again, with all our ties to land cast off. The last of it went under with the sun. The night surrounds us now, the sails softly pulling. The others lie asleep below. Only the stars up here to keep me company on this mute and vacant sea. Though all is featureless and bare, when last I checked the chart, it showed that near at hand lie unseen, unnamed ocean glades where humpback whales glide and sing, all at their majestic glacial pace, great, gentle cloud-like beings drifting with currents too slow to sense. As we approach their range, our boat bows and curtsies in graceful, mazy arcs. I lean my back against the helm and watch the mast sweeping across vast fields of stars. Infinite landlessness. I would not trade this hour for anything I know. Rock me gently, ocean. I'm coming home. A long, dark wire winds and coils down through the midnight ship to a listening point beneath the keel. Up, out of the dark waters pour wild arias, cantatas, magnificats, recitatives and requiems whose boiling echoes are tumbling and cascading around the cathedral vaults of the sea. A mad welter of resonance, a seething, irrepressible contrabass, mezzo, soprano, falsetto of whale song. The wildest, most joyous music of all. All night long we are borne along by that music. The watches rotate and shift. Each lone helmsman takes his turn, and each, by dawn, is changed forever.
And so we end that set and today's show with The Voyage Home. Probably a recognizable voice is Leonard Nimoy. and the music is provided by Paul Winter. The writing, I believe, is by Paul Halley. This is an album that Paul Winter, who's done numerous records that are inspired by the ocean. But around the time that Leonard Nimoy was directing the 4th episode of the Star Trek movies, the one entitled The Voyage Home, which is about whales, they also did this project where Nimoy read a number of pieces to Paul Winter's music.
Before that, we had Jacques Cousteau reading the intro to his TV program, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. This was just the 2nd episode, and it was entitled Sharks.
And us older folks all grew up with the sound of Jacques Cousteau's voice, that nearly impenetrable French accent. I know for me as a child, I would always be about a second behind it trying to decode, what did he just say?
He would always be talking about the beautiful octopus who has devoured our ship, and we are inside it, but still he's very beautiful.
There just isn't anything to compare today to old Jacques.
No, but his son carried on his work.
That's right, and his son also directed
Correct.
These episodes. Before that, we had Herman Melville, this time prose from Herman Melville. Obvious choice, selection from Moby Dick. Here again, read by Leonard Nimoy from that same album with Paul Winter. This chapter from the novel called Queequeg and I.
We also had Charlton Heston reading a selection from The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway.
Charlton Heston, often referred to as the last classic movie star. And the music there was the suite from the film version of The Old Man and the Sea, which starred Spencer Tracy. The music was by Dmitri Tiomkin, and I thought that was a nice pairing. Mm-hmm. We had James Mason doing Captain Nemo's monologue from the Disney version of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Before that, we had a CBS News report, which was about the Red Sea. In the late 70s, to set the historical context, Israel and Egypt had established peace for the first time in decades, and the two nations split authority over the Red Sea. And so this report was about the ecological concerns at that time, and it also included a scientific expedition being run by Dr. Eugenie Clark.
Dr. Eugenie Clark is really a favorite person of mine. I want to read you a very short story that was published in the 1978 Scholastic biography entitled Shark Lady, The Adventures of Eugenie Clark, which was really important to me when I was a child.
And I think I'm finding that it was important to literally millions of girls in this country who saw Eugenie Clark as an incredible role model.
Right, I'm sure that's true. So she had a scientific shark lab that was sort of open to the public. This is one of my favorite stories in this book. Some days it seemed that there were children everywhere. Children peering into microscopes, children fishing from the docks, children looking at the books in the library. Teachers brought their classes to visit. Eugenie talked to the school children about fish. Beryl showed them the alligator, the snakes, the turtles, and the big shark pen. One day, Beryl took a class out to the shark pen to show them Rosie, his favorite shark. The big nurse shark was at the bottom of the pen, out of sight. Beryl splashed his hand in the water to call her. He turned his head away for a moment to say something to the children. At that instant, Rosie swam up from below, lifted her head out of the water, and touched Beryl's hand ever so gently. One of the children thought it looked as if Rosie were kissing Beryl's hand. But ever since that day, one of Beryl's fingers has been a little bit shorter. So, in the world of Eugenie Clark, even when the sharks bite you, nobody's really bothered by it.
It's just sharks being sharky. And we began that set with selections from Rachel Carson's The Sea Around Us. And the music there was part of Bernard Herrmann's soundtrack to Beneath the 12 Mile Reef. a film that's main value can be found in Bernard Herrmann's score. There's some great underwater cinematography too, but as far as story and acting, oh my goodness, not a great film by any means. Not totally amazing. We also included part of Donovan's song, There Is an Ocean.
So, thank you for listening to Shark Week. Next week, we'll be doing a show called Beyond and Back, punk poetry, featuring Exene Cervenka. And we have a few other ideas, but we also want to hear from you. We have a lot to play, but we'd also like to play recordings that listeners send in to us of live readings, home recordings, words set to sounds or music, whatever you've got.
Burping, farting.
No.
Please, if you enjoyed the show, give us a thumbs up, make a comment of some kind here on YouTube or Podbean or our site, jedediahsmith.net.
So until next week, stay safe, cats and kittens, and stay out of the water.
And speak freely.
Hey, check it out. I'm a theremin.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me. Now it's more like Star Trek.
You're like Star Trek.